So unless you've been living under a rock for like the past week and a half, a new Avatar series just got announced called Legend or Seven Havens, I think. And it described the Avatar as, humanity's destroyer, right? Meaning Korra really fucked up. Now, personally, I gotta come out and say this because I don't want to be called a misogynist, a sexist, none of that. I don't hate Korra. I actually kind of like Korra. The Legend of Korra isn't as bad as a lot of people say. I'm not a Korra defender, but I will defend Korra against, people who actively go out of their way to say, hey, Korra is terrible. I got a homeboy, he act like Korra is the Antichrist. I don't think so. Like, legit, she was put in some of the worst situations that any Avatar previously could have been put into.
Your Honor, my client was simply standing on business.
Your Honor, my client didn't know that was illegal.
Your Honor, my client was rapping the lyrics as the artist intended.
Your Honor, respectfully, you weren't fucking there, okay?
Your Honor, my client was hitting them folks.
Your Honor, my client did not do that shit.
Right? She was stronger than quite literally all of her opponents except Amon, because he's a top 2 non-Avatar bender in the verse since he had the Force. I don't need to elaborate. Amon had the Force. Psychic bloodbending? That's bullshit. He had the Force.
Was a prodigy, mastering my father's psychic bloodbending technique by the time he was 14.
Anyway, she was put in some crazily insane situations, and I don't blame her for half the shit that she had to go through. However, because Korra defenders are out of their fucking mind, out the fact that they describe Korra as the humanity's destroyer, they've been attacking Aang, and that's just not okay. We don't need to attack Aang on some of these points because Aang ain't do shit wrong. You know what I'm saying? Aang was a saint damn near. He didn't have no issues. But we gonna talk about some of these talking points that they get into because, like, why are you shitting on Aang? Aang is gang. That's Aang right there. That's homeboy. We don't talk about Aang like that. So let's get into some of these talking points that they really love to push, right? Let's go. First, we gonna compare about how the fact that Aang got his connection to the Avatar state severed to how Korra lost it, right? Personally, I don't blame Korra for losing the Avatar state, right? I blame Amon, not Amon, who am I talking about? I blame Mako and Bolin, right? Her team Avatar was so incredibly shitty that they always lost their fights. Look, Aang didn't have to deal with that. Aang had Toph, Aang had Katara, Aang had Zuko, Aang had Sokka. You got 4 All-Stars on your, hell, Suki too. You got 5 All-Stars on your side. You got 5 All-Stars on your side. Katara, one of the, if not the greatest waterbenders of all time. You got Sokka, one of the greatest military strategists and innovators and thinkers of Aang's era. One of the smartest people. You got Zuko, prodigy, not on Azula's level, but prodigy firebender, right? You got Toph, greatest earthbender and metalbender of all time. Suki, incredible combatant, was able to go head to head with Ty Lee, leader of the fucking Kyoshi Warriors. 5 All-Stars on your team, and guess what Korra has? Bolin. I guess he's a lava bender, but he won the lava bender in season 2. Mako. Trash. Asami. She could probably whoop Sokka in a fight, but outside of that, garbage. Tenzin, I wouldn't even call him part of the team, but even though Tenzin was kind of like a part of Team Avatar, he was the only bright spot, right? But even then, he wasn't around enough to help Korra like that. In fact, in season 2, she was mad at Tenzin damn near the whole time for lying to her, which we're going to get into that later. But yeah, no, she had quite literally every disadvantage when it came to her own team not being able to stall Unalaq, right? That was all they had to do. Even though Unalaq is a great, I'd say probably like a top 10 waterbender in the series, y'all had to stall him for 10 minutes. Y'all couldn't even hold out for 3. 10 minutes couldn't even hold out for 3. You're bums. I'm sorry. Hot garbage.
You know what you did, Shay?
Oh! Sharkeisha! Oh my god! Sharkeisha!
Right? So when she lost that fight to Unalaq, right? Unavatu, which really she shouldn't have, right? I don't know why I'm not going to put too much blame on her. Korra is incredibly strong, right? I just think that sometimes her decision making isn't the best, and that's okay to say. why she was trying to go head for head with one of the most skilled waterbenders of all time instead of using one of the other 3 elements that she has over him, seeing as he's a dark avatar with 1 element and she has 4, meaning she is empirically stronger. Maybe not as skilled, but definitely stronger. I don't think that... But anyway, Aang also made in Aang's situation, he made an incredibly stupid decision trying to activate the avatar state while in the middle of a fight. Now look, if this was an anime, he would have been able to do it, but it wasn't an anime, and you have smart people like Azula, who was ready and willing to boom Aang the second she got. You know what she did? She boomed Aang the second she got. Aang made an incredibly stupid decision, which he lucked out of. We can talk about that. Korra was put into a terrible situation. Aang was not. However, even though that Aang was put into a bad situation, he was still alive. He didn't sever the connection, right? He got it back by grace of God. That rock that punctured him in the back, act of God, right? We can acknowledge that. However, there's no reason to actively shit on Aang for something that dumb when we're talking about Korra, right? I'm not trying to be biased, even though I definitely am. I'm trying to be non-biased. This is a non-biased talking point right here. 2 entirely separate situations. Korra was set up and made a terrible decision. Aang just made a terrible decision, but he didn't have to suffer the consequences of said terrible decision because he got his past lives back. Once again, I don't blame Korra for that. She had a horrible team and horrible people around her to help her. Now, should she have gone with her uncle, even though literally everybody said he was evil? I mean, in her situation, everybody was lying to her, so she didn't know any better. But I'm going to say this, as someone who has a B- in manipulation and gaslighting 101, I wouldn't have did it like that. If I'm lying to her whole life, you got to sow in seeds of, oh, you can't make decisions without me, so that even if she finds out I'm lying, she still has this doubt in the back of her mind that, well, I don't know, if maybe I need to ask them. But that's just me. I'm not a bad person. I just have that grade and, But anyway, next talking point. One of the next talking points is that, every avatar makes decisions that they think is the best that's going to impact the previous or the next generation, right? And I just have to say, Aang didn't do anything like that. And I know people like to talk about, oh, yes, he did. Amon was directly his fault. No, it wasn't. See, as far as we know, right, there was no civil discourse in Republic City while Aang was alive. And that's as far as we know. We don't know any different. But it started to happen after Aang died, right? Because there was a power vacuum, right? Republic City was Aang's creation. He stayed on Airbender Island, Air Temple Island, whatever it was called. And he, essentially was raising that city from the ground up, along with Toph and Sokka, right? Because Sokka was the head councilman. Once Sokka passed, and once Aang passed, there was a power vacuum. There was no one to actually hold order within the city. That had nothing to do with Aang. Amon was a greedy piece of shit who was influenced by his abusive father. One, who Aang took his bending away and put him in jail. Aang had as far as we know, Aang had no idea that he even escaped jail. Second of all, that was Toph's problem. Toph left that problem for Korra, right? He handed Yakom over to Toph. So when we talk about, it's Aang's fault, right? No, it's not. And in fact, if you say it's Aang's fault, what would you have him do? With his biggest responsibility in bringing the air nomads back by raising Tenzin up with all the culture that was gone and destroyed because of the Fire Nation. You want him to what? Just forego that and go on a manhunt for the rest of his days for a guy who actively changed his face. Now, Aang did have options, right? He could have went to go see the Queen of Faces or whatever, that spirit. But in reality, he was on bad terms with her anyway. It's not like she was going to get an answer, right? So I don't know what we're talking about, right? Aang had no idea. And Yakom forced his ideals onto his son, who turned into a crazy ass madman with the Force. I'm sorry. How is that Aang's fault? Realistically, how is that Aang's fault? In fact, I would say the lack of Avatar in Republic City, because of the White Lotus and because of Tenzin, caused that civil discourse in the first place. There should always be a bridge between non-benders and benders. That bridge was engulfed and gone, but because only benders were on the council. A smart person could tell you that that wasn't a good thing. Now, replacing it with the president, I don't know if that's the best idea. Realistically, that was it's whatever. We can get into that a different day. Let's move on to the next talking point. The last talking point is that Aang also made mistakes by leaving the temple for the 100-Year War. So the 100-Year War started. Now, I'm going to say this, right? I'm about to defend Avatar Roku, which for no reason will I ever do ever again. Maybe, I don't know. I don't hate Roku, right? But in reality, Roku was not at fault for that. He had no idea Sozin was going to genocide all airbenders across the planet. First off, I understand you should have said, maybe, yeah, he should have taken action, right? He could have, I'm not saying he could strip a royal person of their, role, because he doesn't have that ability. He's the Avatar. He's not a dictator. He can't just go around stripping people of their titles. He can't do that. However, he had Sozin on a bitch leash for whoever knows how long. They were probably in their 40s, if not 50s, when Sozin went and destroyed that royal palace. They were old as shit when Sozin died, or what's his name, Roku died. You can't put that on Roku. He had no idea that he was going to go commit a genocide. Now, if he knew he was going to commit a genocide, I have no doubt he would have killed him, right? But Aang, when he found out that the Fire Nation was doing stuff and he was the Avatar and he had to take responsibility for a lot of the shit that's happening, not only are you telling that to a 12-year-old boy, but even then, he wasn't going to run away because of his responsibilities. That's not why he ran away. People forget this. He ran away because they were going to take Monkey Yacht, so they were going to take Aang away from Monkey Yacht. So that is why he ran away. He ran away because he was being isolated from everyone he knew because his friends didn't want to play with him anymore, and they were about to take the one person who would still talk to him, being Monkey Yacht, away from him. That's why Aang ran away. And in fact, for the Korra fans who were like, "Oh, but Aang was still on the Aang left the temple," they all died because of that. Aang was not going to be on that temple regardless, right? Same night that they told Monkey Yatso that they were taking Aang away from him, Monkey Yatso was about to sneak Aang off the temple.
I'm not going to let them take you away from me. Aang?
Neither of them would have been on the temple, and that temple would have still got destroyed because of Sozin's comment. Genocide still would have happened. So when we talk about, oh, it's Aang's fault that the 100-Year War would pass, okay, boom. Let's say Aang stayed on the temple. He would have been dead. He only had airbending, even though he was a phenomenal airbender and was better than most of the masters on the Southern Air Temple. He can't take a firebender amped with Sozin's comet, especially if they're master firebenders. He couldn't do that at that point in time. Also, he was raised to be a pacifist. I doubt he's ever fought anyone before that. So saying that it's Aang's fault that all these things happen is false, right? You can love Korra, you can defend Korra. Don't slander Aang for that, right? I can make a 12-hour video defending all the actions of Korra, but I'm not going to because I don't need to do that because it is so clear. Y'all just emotional, right? And I like Korra, I really do. A lot of the shit that happens in the show is not her fault. But too many people love to just hate for no fucking reason. And that is why you guys are so visceral in your defense when you don't need to be. All you need to do is just push it out. Now, did Korra open the gates to hell? Let's talk about it in another video. Hey, peace, love, and happiness, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.